There is no need for them to be adjudicated as a terrorist. Also, are you really hissing? What kind of a child are you? We're trying to save lives and you're hissing. Go back to high school and play spitball with your friends. If you're a member of Al-Qaeda, you're a terrorist.
How do you know if that they're members of these gangs? What I'm saying
is... You mean the tattoos, MS-13 on our knuckles doesn't, that doesn't help it?
Those...
Do you have tattoos of Al-Qaeda?
The tattoo did not say MS-13. I don't want to get into that.
Oh, of course it does. It's just accidents that the four symbols represent the letters MS. See, this is why Politico is a joke. This is why you are gutter press and fake news. That those four symbols that just happen to comport with the letters MS and the numbers 13 don't, in this case, represent MS-13. You're sitting here live defending a member of MS-13. That's why I regret coming here, because this isn't journalism. This is protecting those who hate America. Shame on you. We are saving lives. Sir.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to this episode of Common Sense View. If you are following Trump's administration, you will know that if there is one thing he got absolutely right, is the communication skill of all the people he confirmed to their different secretariats. All of them are spot on in their communication, even when they go to the ambush of the Democrats in the Congress. They, in a masterful way, a skillful way, dismantle every one of them. They don't allow them to get the ball out their 18-year goal before they are under attack. And that has been phenomenal. And the interview I'm going to share with you now, Sebastian Gorka with a Politico journalist, is also another example of such epic encounters. I can say, in my own judgment, at a certain point, I give praises to the lady because she managed to hold together what would have been a disaster that she caused. And also, I can also say that Gorka was a little bit over-aggressive, but you can understand when people are under attack all the time, they are already prepared to defend themselves and counter-attack for those who can. So without further ado, I have to tell you, if you have not, if you have not subscribed on your way in, please make sure you do subscribe. I really need it for the channel to grow. But without further ado, let's hop into the interview. And at the end, you tell me what you think about the whole encounter.
Can you start by just walking us through what your mandate is in this critical moment?
Very simply, to protect the innocent and to deal earthly justice to evildoers, the individuals who threaten our U.S. citizens, whether here or abroad.
Can you walk us through the difference in your approach to this issue?
Two fundamental differences. Number one, we actually kill terrorists. For the last 4 years, the person you had on the stage previously, Mr. Sullivan, the propagator of the Russia hoax, demanded that any attack against high-value jihadis must be sent to the White House and be signed off by him and Joe Biden when he was awake. That was inexcusable. As a result, dozens and dozens of Americans were killed, hundreds of our allies and partners were murdered by groups like ISIS, and as a result, when we came in the building, we reverted to the rules of engagement under the first Trump administration, which meant that if theater commanders saw a high-value target and there was no danger of collateral damage, their job was to kill them. As a result, in the first 100 days, we've killed more than 74 high-value jihadi targets. So basically, we're back in the business of doing counterterrorism.
Any civilians caught up in that?
Secondly, you asked, I told you two things that have changed. Mm-hmm. We take ideology seriously.
Before you go to that answer, personally, I don't like throwing bombs here and there to kill people. But they know what they do. And I don't know, as a matter of fact, as a matter of international relations, who gave them the authority to kill people across borders. But that is not my position to take a stand on it. But my own opinion on that is completely immoral. You don't have no reason to kill anyone, especially somebody who didn't attack your homeland. You may claim that these people are planning to attack your homeland. Your homeland is also are planning to attack people, but that's on my own perspective. But that is his duty, and that is the duty he's carrying out for Trump. I'm not in support, I'm not against, I'm just a neutral arbiter who is commenting on what I saw on the internet about an administration I like who is in the head of. Now, in a way, he sidetracked that question whether there are collateral damages kit or something like that, because I think he answered it from the beginning that anytime they saw a target with less collateral damage, they take it out. So that's what I want to say on that, but I'm not going to interfere so much.
Under the Obama administration, the Biden administration, there was this asinine, fallacious concept that John Brennan, a traitor to this nation, tried to sell as the advisor for counterterrorism to Obama, that terrorists are created by, quote, upstream factors, such as lack of education and poverty. That is complete and utter garbage. If you look at the 9/11 hijackers, you look at bin Laden himself, a scion, a millionaire from a Saudi family, we realized it's not poverty, it's not lack of education, it's belief in the ideology of global jihad, in the Wahhabi Salafist version of Islam. What we are doing right now and preparing the new US counterterrorism strategy is refocusing on the real cause of jihadism, which is the ideology of jihad.
How do you battle an ideology?
You delegitimize those who propagate it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in as much as I don't believe in killing people across border, but the specific point he makes it that is legitimate to me, and I stand to is the fact that the only way to destroy ideology is to delegitimize those who carry them. And when you show the flaw of an ideology, you put a doubt in the minds and hearts of the followers, especially ideology that propagates the killing of human beings as against the helping of human beings to strive, which I believe global jihadism is one of. And on the flip side of it, unnecessarily using the military force to invade countries could be seen as the same. When you say that, people will think about Russia, but it's not only Russia that have been guilty of such action in the recent past. So any country that invades any other country, whether it is Russia or France or US, it is morally wrong. But any bad ideology that makes people believe that they are stronger than the other and others should be wiped out and they should live and others don't live, have no right to stay either. So even though you cannot root out ideologies easily, you can at least delegitimize young recruits so that it will be difficult for them to get people who are following their footsteps. So we go on.
I asked about civilians. How do you factor into account the possibility of civilian casualties? Are those simply part of killing the bad guys, or is that something that you guys are actively trying to avoid? How do you make those calculations?
Of course we're actively trying to avoid it, but we follow the laws of war. So we do not target civilians, but we go after high-value threats. That's the priority. And we maintain everything under the requirements of international conflict.
I do want to talk about the big story of the week, which is the president's trip to the Middle East. It's unique in that the focus has been business. I mean, you look at some of the rooms and the net worth of individuals that are there, the biggest CEOs and business leaders from all around the world, including the United States. His focus has been on making deals. But do you see a connection between the deal making and national security, given how hot that region and really so much of the world is right now?
It applies to every region of the world. This is why the idiots who didn't understand what happened in the Oval with Zelensky are such cretins.
Who are those idiots and what didn't they understand?
Anybody who didn't understand the significance of the rare earth minerals deal. I can't tell you how many interviews I've done, especially with European media, where they're screeching about, oh, you need NATO guarantees and you've got to sign a piece of paper with Kiev. The same kind of piece of paper, I guess, as the Budapest Memorandum from 1995. No, the whole point is that economy is inextricably linked to security. What is the power? I mean, if you're interested in a piece of paper, Neville Chamberlain came back from Munich and waved one in 1938 and said, we have peace in our time. After that, we saw 60 million people killed in World War II. It's not about pieces of paper. It's about intertwining economies. The fact that Americans will now be working in Ukraine on extracting rare earth minerals will mean that certain individuals in the Kremlin will probably think twice about invading again, unless, of course, there's a Democrat in the Oval Office, which seems to be the case whenever Russia invades.
So that's a very important point. And that's also the point I blame the West in what is happening in Africa and the Middle East. You make effort to export to them more your own ideology, your way of life, trying to wipe theirs out. Whereas the best way to affect or to instill whatever you think you are coming with is to integrate it into their own system. If you want them to develop and you want to be the agent of that development, the easiest way to get them to follow is what? You merge your own economy with theirs, their own commerce with theirs, and then there's a pursued common interest. And that is exactly the system Trump used in his visit to the Middle East. Intertwine the economy of the US with that of the Southeast, with that of the Qatars, and also trying to get Iran to do exactly the same thing. Because when you have an economy that is rubbing with each other, instead of scratching the other one to the floor, you help the other one get up. And when the economy of every part of the world is blooming, there's no need to fight for anything but mutual coexistence.
The bumper sticker for what the president is doing right now is very clear. 8 years ago, he went into the Hijaz. He spoke to 42 Arab and Muslim heads of state, and he said, you have to deal with jihad in your mosques, on your streets. He sent us such a powerful message that Muslims came up to me afterwards from the region and said, thank you for what the president said 8 years ago. After that, we had the Abraham Accords. We decimated, we destroyed the ISIS caliphate in Syria and Iraq. Now, 8 years later, we're moving to prosperity. So 8 years ago, it was security, the destruction of ISIS, the Abraham Accords. Now, it's prosperity with these incredible deals. The two are inextricably intertwined.
You recently slammed the new leader of Syria. You said you'd never seen a jihadi become a Democrat and a normal politician. You're now supposed to believe Syria's new leader won't kill Christians and Jews after being a member of al-Qaeda. President Trump met with the new leader of Syria. What was going through your mind as you kind of saw that embrace from the president, and would you have advised against it?
So what I said was regarding trend lines in my 26 years of doing this. And the fact remains, jihadis very rarely moderate, especially after they win. What I saw the president do was absolute genius. He has now said to this man, Giuliani, that you have a chance to stabilize Syria. But it's not unconditional. It's very clear that the minorities, especially the Druze, the Christians, the Kurds, must be parts of the government in Damascus. We are incredibly happy that the murderous regime of Assad is gone, that Iran cannot use the territory of that state to resupply its proxies like it did in absolute freedom for years on end.
So
now
you believe
the challenge,
it was a smart idea for the president to have that meeting?
Well, look, we have to stabilize that country. It has to be stabilized. Now we will see whether or not the current acting head of state can deliver.
If the conditions are met and every other ban on them are lifted, that means they have all the necessary conditions to thrive as a country. But then if he goes on rampage killing of the minorities among them, then the international community will have another reason to come in. Do they have the moral rights? I don't know. But sometimes it's not okay to wait by the side where people are slaughtered without any justified reason.
This is the window to stabilize Syria. We shall see what Giuliani delivers.
Has he and should the president make some of those demands?
Oh, we have. Oh, trust me. Behind closed doors, we have made those stipulations very clearly.
To Sharon?
To the regime, absolutely.
Let's go back to Ukraine for a moment, because we touched on it, but I want to dig a little bit deeper given what is happening in Turkey today. President Trump, you know this well, has said many times on the campaign trail that he would end the war between Russia and Ukraine on day one. Obviously, this is an incredibly complicated conflict. The war is still very much ongoing. People are dying. There's peace talks today in Istanbul. Should the president be there? You said yourself that there's only one man who can broker this deal, and it's President Trump.
At the end of the day, the final settlement will see my boss, President Trump, in the room sealing the deal.
Should he have been in the room today?
No, because we need to have all the parties decide. One of the parties is missing, right?
Well,
so there's no point.
President Putin would have gone if President Trump went.
We need to make sure that there's no intransigence from all sides involved. But you can rest assured that when the final ink is put on that piece of paper, President Trump will be the person, the man behind the art of the deal, who seals that deal and stops the meat grinder that is the war in Ukraine.
Why has the president not met with President Putin, given he said today nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together?
Well, we can't force Putin to meet. We're not going to lasso him and pull him.
President Trump knows how to put pressure on. He can lasso in his own way.
Timing. Deals are all about timing. When the time is right, that's when the president is in the room with Putin. But my expectation is imminently.
What does imminently mean?
That's all you're getting. You know I detest the Politico. I'm only here as a favor to a friend in the White House. You know who you are. I detest the Politico. You're not going to get anything more from me than imminently.
I'm just doing my job and trying to get more information for the American people, sir. It's as part of the conversation, part of the deal making, the president has said that the idea of Crimea being recognized as sovereign Russian territory is on the table. Do you think that some of those regions in the Donbass that have been under Russian control, is that and should that be on the table as part of these negotiations?
So I know you're from the Donbass, and this is personal to you, but I will not comment. It would be incredibly reckless of me, and I told you outside that I will countenance maybe one question on Ukraine because I'm the Senior Director for Counterterrorism. So we're kind of exhausted that topic at this point, but I'll tell you this. We live in the real world. The Trump administration lives in the real world. We recognize the reality on the ground, number one, that's the beginning, because we're not utopianists and we're not human engineers. We're not some kind of pie-in-the-sky believers in utopia. We recognize the reality on the ground, and we have one priority above all else, whether it's the Middle East or whether it's Ukraine. It's to stop the bloodshed. Everything else comes after the bloodshed has been halted.
Well, that is a revealing answer. Thank you for humoring me with another question there. The administration has designated a number of Latin American cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. That's something that you're deeply involved with. Can you explain to us the significance of that designation? We've already seen an escalation with the deportations to El Salvador, but how else might the administration take on these cartels under this designation?
Well, first, let's talk about the justification for the 6 cartels and the 2 gangs being designated as FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations. It's clear, it's really essential that all Americans, our partners, and Mexico understand as well why we did this. For my Newsmax show, before I came back into the White House, I devoted one episode to this problem, and I started with doing the math. And I just calculated how many Americans have died in uniform since the cessation of hostilities in 1945. So every KIA, Marine, Airman, soldier, Coast Guard, you name it. From Korea to Vietnam to Panama to Grenada, Gulf War, Gulf II, Afghanistan. In all of those conflicts combined, 103,000 Americans were killed. At the same time, I went to Biden's CDC website. And I looked for the data on deaths by fentanyl and illicit drug use smuggled across the border. It was hard to find. You got to dig deep at the Biden CDC website. But I found it. In the second year of Biden and Harris's open border policies, 110,000 Americans were murdered by illicit drugs smuggled into this country and in many cases prepared with precursors from China. More Americans were killed in 1 year thanks to Biden and Harris and the cartels who facilitated them, than in 75 years of armed conflict. We are at war with the cartels, and that's why President Trump, Stephen Miller, Governor Noem, Tom Homan are doing what they do, because we will not permit this to continue.
So what doors does the Foreign Terrorist Organization open for you all to tackle this problem in a new way?
So it opens a whole slew of judicial and financial and economic options on top of the obvious ones, which have to do with sanctions. Sanctioning not just individual organizations, but businesses that are doing business with the cartels, and even individuals. So I'm really flabbergasted by the mainstream legacy lying media's conceptualization that FTO designation doesn't bring anything to the table. It brings a panoply of options we didn't have previously, simply dealing with them as criminal organizations.
Is there a military component potentially to tackling the cartels?
There may be, but that is up to the Homeland Security Advisor, to Secretary Hegseth, and our friends in Mexico. Mexico needs this problem to be fixed as much as we need to save American lives.
You're obviously in coordination with all of those folks. So is potentially sending troops, is that on the table?
Not something I'm going to discuss at this point. We are doing this in consultation with the Mexican government, who are vested in making sure the cartels are not running parts of Mexico as they currently are. There are estimates of upwards of 500,000 Mexican nationals working for the cartels, in many cases under duress. We'd like to see those Mexicans free from the scourge that is the cartels, as would the President of Mexico and everyone else.
Yeah, how closely are you all working with the President of Mexico now?
And especially his security director, absolutely.
In the interest of speeding up deportations, which was a massive campaign promise from President Trump, he's done the border piece of it. Now it's the folks in the country. Do you believe it's okay to skirt due process?
Yeah, it is from here that the interview took another step. Everything changed, and the little hostility, whether you like it or not, and the complete bashing of the media came up. And you can understand all this parading of the idea of a Maryland man and all those stuff, you know. So this is where the entire interview took a different dimension. So let's watch.
Never happened. Due process has never been skirted. This is another fake news canard. The fact that so let me be clear here, okay? Let me be clear. When an organization is designated by the Secretary of State as a foreign terrorist organization, every single stinking member is a terrorist by US law. There is no need for them to be adjudicated as a terrorist. Also, are you really hissing? What kind of a child are you? We're trying to save lives and you're hissing. Go back to high school and play spitball with your friends. What absolute children.
I've never played spitball before.
You've never used spitballs? Well, maybe not in Ukraine.
No spitballs in Ukraine.
So the fact is, when you have people, I looked at Politico's coverage. Politico used the Maryland father fake news. Maryland father, twice adjudicated by an immigration judge to be here illegally and to be deported. An individual who's arrested on body cam footage, anyone watching right now can watch him being stopped by local police with 7 illegals in his vehicle and no driving license. An individual involved in human trafficking who beat his fiancée. And this is a Maryland father for Politico. You don't need and you don't get the due process if you're a member of a terrorist organization.
Well,
Next, you'll be
some
saying,
judges, including those appointed by President Trump, disagree.
Well, so what? Could they be wrong? Could a judge possibly be wrong? Maybe.
Well, that's why we have the process, and this is likely going to go up to the
You're not
Supreme Court.
listening. If you are a terrorist of an FTO, it's not a traffic ticket. You don't go to county court. You're a member of a federally designated terrorist organization. It's really that simple. If you're a wife beater and a human trafficker, goodbye.
Abrego Garcia case aside, in the interest of getting folks that you believe are bad actors.
Belief. So again, why are you saying belief?
Because
let's go back to this.
Been given a lot of evidence.
1,000 deaths a year a question of belief?
Absolutely not.
Nobody recovers from fentanyl. You know that. When you overdose on
Absolutely not, and that
fentanyl,
is
you
devastated.
die.
And I've
You
met
die.
many families who have been devastated by it. However, we also have a process in this country for figuring out who the bad actors are.
And we figured it out. It's the 6 cartels and the 2 gangs that have caused 110,000
Which is understandable. I think
a year.
where the tricky point is the evidence, which due process usually helps provide,
Why are
of
you talking
whether
as if
or
these
not
are people who are
because
U.S.
we don't
citizens?
know, because we due process.
So you're defending members of FTOs.
I'm not defending
You are.
anybody.
No, what you're doing right now is you're sending designated terrorists should have the rights of somebody who's in a contractual dispute
I think that
with their
transparency
neighbor.
in why that designation is given to a certain person is important.
It's very easy what the transparency is. It's like a member of Al-Qaeda. If you're a member of Al-Qaeda, you're a terrorist.
How do you know if that they're members of these gangs? What I'm saying
You mean
is,
the tattoos MS-13 on our knuckles doesn't, that doesn't help it?
those
Do you have tattoos of Al-Qaeda?
the tattoo did not say
MS-13.
MS-13. I don't want to get into that.
Oh, of course it does. It's just accidents that the 4 symbols represent the letters MS. See, this is why Politico is a joke. This is why you are gutter press and fake news. That those 4 symbols that just happen to comport with the letters MS and the numbers 13 don't, in this case, represent MS-13. You're sitting here live defending a member of MS-13. That's why I regret coming here, because this isn't journalism, this is protecting those who hate America. Shame on you. We are saving lives.
Sir.
Saving lives. How about Maryland fathers compared to Maryland mothers? Like Rachel Marin, mother of 5, raped and murdered and thrown in a ditch. How about Jocelyn Nungare, age 12, raped a mile from her home and thrown in a ditch? It's strange that Politico doesn't do articles about her, that mother, or that 12-year-old girl. Why is that? Why is the MS-13 guy with the knuckle tattoos more important in terms of due process than the lives of 12-year-old girls brutally raped? It's weird that the priorities shift to defending the member of an FTO, but not the children and the women. Dan Crenshaw told me a story once of a 16-year-old girl who was smuggled across this border. The parents paid $5,000 for her to live in America, the land of milk and honey. She ended up locked in a room in New York, raped by more than a dozen men every day for 18 months until she escaped. She went to Dan Crenshaw's office, and I'm no friend of Dan Crenshaw's, okay? He's still got TDS. And that girl said to him, please close the border so another girl doesn't have to be raped by 12 strange men every day for 18 months. It's strange that Politico doesn't cover those stories. Could you tell me why?
We have covered.
No, you haven't. You have not covered those stories. I'd like to see the Jocelyn Nungare, Rachel Marin stories in comparison to the Russia collusion garbage. I mean, let's be honest here.
Let's move on.
You have an agenda.
I want to talk about, well, I actually have a separate question about the deportations. Because the promises on the campaign trail regarded both the criminal element of undocumented immigrants here, but also, the president believes that anyone who came here illegally should not be here. So how do you move on and handle the folks who are here, who are, young families? I met a lot of young mothers with children crossing the border. What do you do about those folks? And are they going to be treated in sort of the same way as these others that we're talking about?
No, we're not going to treat people who came here for purely economic reasons as children, perhaps, as the same as we treat members of designated terrorist organizations. I mean, you're an immigrant, right?
I am.
So am I. I waited in line.
Yeah.
I took a test. I took an oath to the U.S. Constitution. Shouldn't anyone who comes to America do what you did and I did?
Yeah, I'm not arguing that. I'm just asking how you will handle the families that are here in this country. And there are a lot of them, right?
Especially because of the last 4 years where we had no border, absolutely.
So what do you do there?
That will be a decision that is made by the Secretary of Homeland Security, Stephen Miller and Tom Homan, because right now we have tens of thousands of criminals here.
Well, and
That's the priority.
How do you distinguish between the two? Is it criminal records? Is it tattoos alone? Like, how are you?
Everything.
How are you figuring out who is the criminal element versus who are the people here?
The way we've done it since the inception of law enforcement. That's how we're going to do it. Since the intelligence community was founded by the National Security Act of 1947.
Well, I think we are living in an unprecedented moment in terms of the amount of people who are here, right? You've been saying that there are record numbers. So
I have been saying?
Yeah.
You disagree with that?
You've been emphasizing that there are record numbers. So I am asking, you can't just do it the way it's always been done. You guys don't like the way that
No, the way it should be done.
Well, so
not the way it was done in the last 4 years. We actually treat these people as illegals, not migrants. You break the law when you try today. Try going to Mexico illegally.
Do people who came here illegally deserve due process?
As I told you, the priority right now is the worst of the worst. The members of the 6+2, the people who have proven criminal records, the people like Jocelyn Nungare's rapist and murderer, who were paroled by the Biden administration, who were paroled by the government in New York. Somebody you may have heard of, Alvin Bragg, who allowed that man to walk out of a New York police station to rape and murder a 12-year-old US citizen. We're going to jettison that garbage whereby the perpetrator is protected by the establishment, and we're going to use the full force of the law to identify, neutralize, and remove them. The way it should have been done for 4 years. That's how it's going to be done.
Let's talk briefly about Iran. The U.S. and Iran ended a 4th round of negotiations on Sunday over their nuclear weapons program. Are you encouraged by the progress of this nuclear deal, and how can the president's visit to the Middle East this week push that forward?
This is perhaps the most important thing with regards to the visit to the Middle East. I counsel everyone who deals with the region to listen to the president's press conferences, because whatever the press conference is about, whether it's about tariffs, the border, or anything else, 9 out of 10 times, he will mention Iran. And that is the primary threat. He has been very clear. Iran must dismantle its nuclear weapons capabilities and must desist in its support of all its proxies. All of them, not just Hamas and Hezbollah, all of them, including the Houthis. So, with regards to what happens, that's up to the mullahs, to the murderous regime in Tehran that has been suppressing its people, not just the Persians, but all the minorities in that country since 1979. So the shoe is on the foot in Iran, and it's for them to decide whether they will face the full fury of the most consequential president of the modern age, or whether they will say, okay, we give it up.
Well, to that point, the president said in Riyadh that, quote, if Iran's leadership rejects the olive branch and continues to attack their neighbors, then we will have no choice but to inflict massive maximum pressure.
This is an absolute takedown by Gorka. I can also say that he was a little bit extreme, because even though the young lady is an activist, just like every one of them, he was a little bit cordial in her attitude. Not really a hot-blown behavior like most of them in MSNBC and the CNN. But in any case, I still know why Gorka was the way he is. He doesn't have a thick skin for all of these shenanigans they are carrying along with. And also, they are not fair and balanced in their coverage. I can understand. But however, I don't want to stretch the interview. If you want to watch it, and go online, watch the remaining part of it. But the young lady was able to capture back the room, and they were able to end up having a better discussion. So, on that note, if you managed to watch this far, it's a little bit boring to me. But it's also educative to know what is going around. If you have come this far, please don't forget to subscribe for more of this from me. I also do things like talk about what is happening at temporary, just talk about the society around us without making reference to any news. My own feeling about what is going on, just my own common sense view about what is going on. If you want to hear more of that, you can just come around as many times as you wish. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And see you next time for more of this. Ciao.